Welcome back. Okay, let's dive right into this today. We're going to unpack an explainer of what is easily one of the most fascinating what-if scenarios in human history. We're digging into a fantastic source text that explores the actual survival of the Byzantine Empire. Just close your eyes and imagine sketching out the map of 1453. Now, normally that map is defined by the fiery end of the medieval world, right? But instead, imagine drawing a timeline where the defenses actually hold.
What if Rome never fell? It's a massive question, isn't it? And it anchors our entire journey today. It forces us to picture a world where the Roman Empire didn't just collapse into the dustbin of history, but instead survived to become a modern, thriving superpower. We're going to explore exactly how this source material maps out that survival, literally century by century.
So, here is the crucial point of divergence. History so often balances on a razor's edge of dust and blood. In our actual timeline, the Genoese commander Giovanni Giustiani Longo was mortally wounded by shrapnel, and, panic ensued, and that doomed the city. But in this alternate history, a heavy steel cross deflects that deadly shrapnel. Giustiani is bruised, sure, but he is unbroken, and he manages to rally the defense. And then, just a few hours later, 12 heavily armed Venetian galleons arrive and absolutely shatter the Ottoman blockade in the Golden Horn. The Second Rome holds.
Part 1. The Miracle of 1453, Rebuilding the Second Rome. Stand! The Mother of God stands with us. The source text provides this incredible quote from Giustiniani, roaring on the ramparts to secure that military victory. But Emperor Constantine XI, who is now universally hailed as the savior, he knew that divine intervention and military bravery just weren't going to be enough for long-term survival. At this point, Byzantium was kind of just a scarred capital surrounded by ruins. True survival was going to require a massive, really delicate diplomatic dance and some radical administrative reconstruction.
Their immediate recovery plan was honestly a masterclass in swift stabilization. Following that 1453 survival, the emperor issued the Crucible of Restoration in 1458. This offered tax exemptions and free land to Christian families of all backgrounds. We're talking Greeks, Serbs, Albanians, even Latin Catholics, all to urgently repopulate the city. Then, jumping to the late 15th century, Byzantium played an absolute geopolitical masterstroke. They backed an Orthodox converted Ottoman rival named Radu, which fractured the Anatolian Turks into competing emirates and basically entirely relieved the pressure on Rome's eastern borders.
Part 2. The Eastern Renaissance, fusing East and West.
Now, in our real timeline, the fall of Constantinople caused scholars to flee Italy, which, as we know, fueled the Western Renaissance. But here, they stayed. They developed something called theological humanism, which integrated classical Hellenic philosophy, think Plato and Aristotle, with Orthodox mysticism. By establishing the imperial press in 1512, they flooded Europe with meticulously edited Greek editions of these works. It sparked a unique intellectual explosion right there in Constantinople, creating a society that perfectly blended Eastern spiritualism with Western humanism. It's wild to think about.
When the Atlantic trade routes opened up and really threatened to bypass the old Silk Road, Byzantium just adapted. They pivoted straight to the Black Sea, trading directly through the Russian steppes. They exported vital grain to Western Europe, which actually prevented famine in Italy. They competed with China using Greek silk in the Holy Roman Empire, and they fueled the Northern Renaissance with secular manuscripts. They maintained an absolute stranglehold on the Bosporus, effectively turning into a strait of gold. Talk about a massive pivot, right?
Part 3. Forging a Roman Commonwealth, the Age of Reform.
Fast forward a bit. Following the shockwaves of the 1789 French Revolution, popular unrest was growing. To avoid violent ethnic fracturing, Emperor Leo VII signed the Constitutional Crucible of 1821 in what was a totally bloodless revolution. Power was decisively divided up. The emperor, or basileus, became a symbolic head of state. A bicameral parliament, the boule, was formed, and a prime minister, the megas logothetes, took over the actual governing power. This brilliant reform rebranded the state into a multi-ethnic Commonwealth of the Eastern Romans, where diverse populations actually had democratic voices, instead of constantly seeking independence.
And that political stability paved the way for massive, rapid industrialization. By 1900, Constantinople had swollen to 1.8 million people. It transformed into a smoky, bustling metropolis proudly known as the Bridge of Steel, connected by the state-of-the-art Via Egnatia Railway. The industrial base diversified immensely across the whole empire. You had silk and armaments in Adrianople, heavy metalworks in Thessaloniki, and vast agricultural hubs in Smyrna. The empire successfully bridged the ancient world and the industrial age.
Part 4. 20th century crucible, surviving the global conflicts.
The ultimate modern test came in 1914 when the empire was dragged into the Great War. For the first time since 1453, the capital was under direct siege. In 1916, Austro-German and Ottoman forces pushed right to the suburbs. Just imagine zeppelins casting shadows over the Hagia Sophia. But the steel-reinforced concrete bunkers of the 19th century Chichalja line held firm, and the Byzantine navy blocked amphibious Bosporus landings using submarine mines. When the U.S. entered the war and the Austro-Hungarian Empire collapsed, Byzantium launched a massive counter-offensive. They emerged victorious, and the 1919 Treaty of Sèvres-Constantinople actually expanded their territory, directly annexing Western Anatolia to the Commonwealth.
Moving past World War II, which, by the way, they cleverly sat out as a neutral power, they entered the Cold War in a prime position. Byzantium became the ultimate Cold War gatekeeper. Through the Bosporus Pact of 1952, this democratic constitutional monarchy became an unshakable anchor for the West. They controlled the vital Black Sea entry corridor, keeping the Soviet Union contained, all while rapidly modernizing their own economy. It was a total game changer.
Part 5. The Eternal City Today, a Modern Megalopolis.
Now, the key takeaway here is the sheer scale of synthesis between antiquity and modernity. Today, Constantinople is a massive EU metropolis of over 15 million people. On one side of the water, you have the historic peninsula, ancient patriarchal cathedrals like the Hagia Sophia and fully pedestrianized Roman forums. Right across the water, the Galata-Levant axis features these gleaming glass and steel skyscrapers housing a global stock exchange and cutting-edge biotech firms. And the whole shebang is connected by an underground metro tunnel and united by a digital sovereign currency known as the Hyperpyron.
But perhaps the most profound change is cultural. There's this event known as the Soteria. In our world, May 29th is a date of historical mourning for a fallen empire. But in this timeline, it's the day of salvation. Millions of modern citizens, a really diverse mosaic of Greeks, Slavs, Turks, and Armenians, gather in a massive candlelight procession to the Hagia Sophia. They don't look back at a dead empire in a textbook. They celebrate the living, breathing presence of an unbroken Rome.
This whole explainer really leaves you wondering just how fragile our own history actually is. It all came down to a single inch of deflected steel on a Genoese breastplate in 1453. It makes you ask, how different would our modern political, cultural, and religious world look today if that steel cross had been just a little bit thicker or placed just a little bit higher? It's a pretty fascinating thought to leave you with, right? Keep questioning the turning points of our world, and I'll catch you next time.
Please like and subscribe.